begin with a little bit of teaching, and then we'll do the meditation towards the second half of our time together. Last week we started a series that we're going to continue for a while on heart practices, on what are traditionally referred to as the Brahmavihāras, the divine abodes of the heart. For the most part, I feel like, as I said last week, that these were the experience that the Buddha had, and that I think it is the universal experience that people have when we free ourselves from greed and hatred and delusion. Greed, hatred, and delusion being the norm, the status quo for human beings. Greed for pleasure, aversion to pain, hatred, resentment, judgment, fear towards those who we feel threatened by or harmed by. And delusion of self-centeredness, I, me, mine, delusion around impermanence and everything being unstable and transient and unreliable. And the Buddha, when he woke up, he said, all that's here now is a feeling of kindness for all living beings, and compassion, and equanimity, and appreciation. And then gave, as I said last week, I believe he thought that mindfulness would do the trick for us. Just be mindful and you'll see everything's impermanent, and you'll become kind and compassionate. You'll see the dysfunctional tendency towards clinging to pleasure, and you'll start to let go and have non-attached appreciation. Just do mindfulness, and you'll start to see that the mind has a mind of its own. It's not so personal. Stop believing it. Stop obeying your ego mind. And mindfulness does that. It leads to these insights and this transformation. But at some point, he realized it's not working that quickly for most students. And he himself spent 7 years of basic intensive retreat, 24/7 studying, practicing, before he came to his, what we call, awakening enlightenment. So he started teaching techniques, started saying like, okay, yes, mindfulness will lead you to this awakening that will give you kindness. You will naturally radiate love and compassion and appreciation. But you don't need to wait until that happens. You can fake it till you make it. You can incline your heart towards compassion. You can train your mind to be kind, to be friendly, to be forgiving. And so we're doing a series on Monday nights for the next, couple months of practicing the heart practices rather than practicing mindfulness, taking some of the advice and some of the traditional practices and exploring them together. Last week, we just did loving kindness for ourselves. I ended the meditation with that phrase that I think is so important for all of us to really take in, where the Buddha said, you could search the entire planet, all realms, the seen realms, the unseen realms, the mysterious. You could search everywhere and never find anybody more worthy of your love than yourself. Nobody more worthy than you of your love. I think also the flip side of that is that also nobody less worthy. That ultimately interconnected, everyone's worthy of love and kindness. As we're going to explore on Mondays, we're going to get to not just ourselves, but our enemies, sending loving kindness, friendliness to the people you hate the most. Friends as enemies. The Dalai Lama talks about his relationship to the communist Chinese and the Tibetan plight of genocide. And he says, but I keep them in my heart with compassion, with kindness. And I refer to them, he refers to them as my friends, the enemy. Not the delusion that they're not the enemy, that we do have any. Anyways, we're not even going there tonight, but we're going to get there. Preview. This is in like 3 weeks, I think. But this potential that is being encouraged of love for both ourselves, kindness, friendliness, both ourselves and the difficult people, not just ourselves. Buddhism is not a self-help, feel good, ignore everyone else tradition. It is definitely from the inside out. Loving kindness, compassion for yourself as well as all living beings. So did you practice this week for yourself? I asked you to. I said all week, send yourself loving kindness. In the office, in the supermarket, in the traffic, on the toilet, may I be at ease. And may I be free from suffering in all aspects of our lives. And I hope you did. Anybody have anything, experiences from practicing for yourself this week? Any insights, anecdotes? One, please.
Just a general observation. I found that times where I put metta early in the practice, like I'm lucky that I'm in a position where it's easier now in my current work situation to get more practice. And I find that on the days I remember to, or just the way it works out, that I put in metta before I started doing insight practice, often the insight practice goes easy. It clears the head of some of the garbage that gets in the way.
You ever practice with Tonjeff? Tonjeff is a bhikkhu Tsinissaro, and he's a really well-respected Buddhist monk. Theravadan tradition, has translated all of the suttas. And if you go sit with him, often he starts giving vipassana instructions with just a couple of minutes of simple metta, of establishing an attitude of friendliness. I think he calls it goodwill. And spreading goodwill towards the entire planet first, all beings, and then pay attention to your breath and your body. But before coming inward, he encourages this outward loving kindness attitude, and then bring that into your insight practice.
I just noticed that when you look at books by monastics, that's often the case. So by wishing yourself energy, the path is not easy. And then you go on the meditate.
And many of you have been sitting with me for years. I do that in a simple way in my mindfulness instructions. I almost always, not always, but usually say, establish an attitude of friendliness. Bring that attitude of friendliness to your relationship to what happens when you're mindful. So that that's that intention. It does shift our practice. What else? There was a hand here. Where was the hand? Did you? Yeah. Is it gone?
Well, no, it isn't. The love of self is what kept coming up. Nobody's going to love me as good as I'm going to love myself. You have.
Sure.
Your acceptance. But that's a hard one. Yeah. Because I felt like that's the only permanence that I have is me.
Yes.
Until my last breath.
Yeah.
So
there's something there. Yeah, there is something there to this independence and this responsibility for caring for ourselves, loving ourselves. And also it's a relational practice, and it is about developing healthy, wise, supportive relationships as well. But ultimately, we do have to take care of ourselves. Jay, please.
More of a question. It's kind of a question I've wanted to ask for a little while. When you talk about like sending loving kindness to yourself or to others,
yeah,
are there any teachings in the suttas that sort of speak to what that practically looks like? Like, can you just use your wild imagination and be like, I'm gonna send syrupy light to my shoulders, or like what is the
right?
Is there?
I'd have to look at the, and I don't know the Pali, so it's usually translated as radiating the feeling of, inclining the heart and radiating the feeling. In the Metta Sutta itself, the phrase is radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies, downward to the depths. So it leaves it to your own imagination, your own visualization. What does it mean for you to send from your being, from your heart, from your mind, from your being? What does it mean to radiate kindness? And it doesn't explain it. It doesn't say like visualize it like this in the early teachings. It's more about establishing that feeling of friendliness. And the phrase, which we use and we'll use tonight, the core phrase is, may you be at ease. And so you're sending that phrase, that wish, that feeling for the ease, well-being, this friendliness towards people. And so maybe it looks like something, maybe it doesn't look, some people are very visual and can really see like radiating a golden mist out over the plains and valleys, and right? And you just like, you see it. I mean, what's the color of kindness? Purple. Like, what does your mind say? What's the color of friendliness? And what if I said, what's the color of love? Right? So all of these conditioned, Hallmark has told us. It's a heart and it's red. But I ask you to make it your own. For maybe it's purple that you're sending. Maybe it's red that you're sending. Maybe it's colorless, shapeless, formless, that it's more of an energy and a feeling from where you feel kindness. Please.
I try to give kindness to myself and forgiving myself.
Huge part of it that we talked a little bit about last week. And I want to talk about more tonight. So let me keep going. The original teaching is radiate kindness towards all living beings. Later in the commentaries, in the Theravadan Buddhist commentaries, it gets broken down into 5 categories, which is what we're going to do this kind of commentarial practice on Mondays. First category is yourself. Fill yourself loving kindness, friendliness. And we did it for a week, but maybe you should do it for a decade until you really feel friendly, kind towards your mind, towards your body, your emotions. The second category, which sometimes gets put up front, is towards your it's called benefactors. So what's that mean to you? Who are the people in your life that you have benefited from knowing? Who've inspired you? Who've supported you? Who've encouraged good things in your life? Not just like the rock stars that you looked up to, but the people that have actually given you support towards, of course, this whole conversation is about awakening, towards ending suffering. Who are the people that have helped you in the direction of ending suffering? Now, traditionally, the benefactor category, I believe, includes your spiritual teachers. So you can think of all of the people who, and some of your spiritual teachers you've never even met, right? You read their book and they became your teacher because their book inspired you so much. And so when you think of benefactors, it doesn't have to be just people you have direct, like the Dalai Lama. How many of you felt inspired by His Holiness, the Dalai Lama? And, I have. But most of us haven't met him or haven't, played poker with him, hung out. But, have him in that benefactor category because he is such an inspirational person on this planet in our lifetime. And then maybe you think of Mahatma Gandhi, and you've read about him, you've heard about him, and like that guy did some real revolutionary social, political, spiritual work. So some of your benefactors, maybe you've never met. Also in this category, traditionally in Buddhism, your parents. Now, some of you are like, no fucking way. Not my parents. They didn't help me end suffering. They just created all of the suffering that I'm trying to alleviate. But there is a strong encouragement in traditional Buddhism towards an appreciation and a kindness for these people that brought us into existence, even if they did a shitty job, even if their suffering was so much that they didn't have the tools to really parent. They did, there is a debt of gratitude for our existence to our parents. We did benefit from them. They created us, even though, and I don't always go here, but I want to talk about tonight, sending loving kindness in this way towards being able to hold a level of appreciation for our teachers, even like I mentioned, Gandhi. Now, maybe some of you have heard some negative things about Gandhi, how imperfect he was, and that actually maybe he caused some real harm to some people in his own family. Even though he did a lot of great work and inspired people, he also had some imperfections, some shadows, some perhaps ignorance. I feel like this ability to hold benefactors, teachers, people that inspire us. I know a lot of us are in recovery. I've had sponsors in recovery, mentors who helped me so much. And then it turned out that they didn't stay sober, that they were confused. I had one spiritual teacher that ended up going to prison after he helped me so much. But he didn't follow through. He didn't practice what he preached. He caused some real harm later. My mind tends to want to dismiss imperfect people rather than hold and appreciate and have as benefactors people who are mixed, who are imperfect. And in Buddhism, I feel like we're in this terrible situation or perfect situation where we have this perfect teaching. I think Buddhism's pretty perfect, personally. I'm biased, but I feel like it's pretty perfect. The model that we have here of the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and kindness and compassion, and it's like this perfect teaching to end suffering for ourselves and to create a positive change on this planet. I mean, I just feel like I've been at it for a long time. Of course, I'm biased. I just feel like this shit is infallible. But it's taught by a bunch of unenlightened people who are totally fallible, who aren't enlightened, right? There's all of myself, totally myself, and all of my teachers, unenlightened human beings, teaching a path to enlightenment. And so, I've said this before, those of you who've studied with me, but I feel it more strongly now. I have a tendency to look for what's wrong. Like even your parents. I don't know how bad your parents were. Some of us had parents that just had no idea what they're doing at all, and really they caused a lot of harm to us. I look at my parents and I think they were mostly good. And they weren't paying attention all of the time. And I focus on my wounds, my childhood trauma is about that 10% of how their addiction or their narcissism or whatever it was got in the way of being present for their children. And I tend to dismiss The 90% of like, hey, they fed me and they clothed me and they were kind most of the time. They rarely beat me. Now, some of you didn't have that, and you had actually a lot of neglect and abuse and didn't get that. But what I'm trying to point to is I feel that with my teachers too. And I feel like that about myself as a teacher, that like somebody can be like mostly good. I feel that about my teachers, like mostly good, but I really focus on any level where they're not in full integrity. And then I'll even get a little obsessed with it, and I'll start dismissing my teachers for their imperfections. Feeling like, well, no, they're supposed to be unconditionally loving and accepting and forgiving and supportive, and they're fucking not. But they're supposed to be. And I'm sure, like, I've had lots of students that probably feel that way about me. Like, he dissed me, he didn't return my email, he wasn't as loving and supportive as I needed him to be. So this category of loving kindness towards our benefactors, our parents, our teachers, of being able to hold deep appreciation with also some ouch. Really and we're most wounded by when we're disappointed by or feel betrayed by or people that we really love. When we, our parents, our teachers, that's when it really hurts, when we feel like this person was not perfectly, unconditionally loving the way that I wanted them to be, the way that I had hoped that they would, the way that they should have been. Sometimes in teaching the benefactor category in loving kindness, teachers will say like, okay, you're not going to find anybody, so just send it to your dog. It's the only unconditionally loving person you've ever met. Right? I mean, have any of you had a human relationship that was perfectly unconditionally loving? And that you actually had a relationship with them? Tibetan Buddhist teachers say, make sure that your Dharma teacher lives in the next valley over so that you don't see them too much or you'll get disillusioned. So you can keep them on the pedestal, which is an interesting setup, right? Rather than let's have imperfect relationships where we have love and forgiveness and ongoing relationship, this sort of setup of like, hey, if you want a perfectly unconditional relationship, don't get too close because you'll get disappointed. Now, I'm in my own practice and encourage you to actually just let disappointment be part of it. To expect imperfection, to expect humanness from unenlightened beings, and to continue to radiate kindness and appreciation for all of the good that people who support us and inspire us in their imperfect ways do. I was doing a thing in here with another teacher a few weeks ago on Thursday night with Alan. Some of you were here. And I felt like, more than felt like, he was encouraging me to completely disown some of the teachers in my life who I felt betrayed by. And he really, was like, yep, they fucked you. And I was like, I don't feel like disowning them at all. Actually, I hold mostly appreciation. Mostly gratitude, and that their imperfections, my imperfections, part of the game, part of it. Continuing to love and appreciate the people, even if they don't show up perfectly for us, and even taking that. Some people would say, actually, take that as the next teaching. Take the disillusionment, the betrayal, as an opportunity for compassion, for forgiveness, for awakening. That if your teacher is too kind for too long, then you won't have that opportunity for heartbreaking betrayal, which is such a good spiritual opportunity. I think we have to be careful about that, because then some abusive teachers will use that as a kind of saying, like, I'm giving you a teaching. I'm being unkind to you. I'm being whatever. And it's for you. And it's like, no, I don't think so. I think it's your shadow. But that's okay. I can use it as my practice. But, there's that kind of guru thing where the guru sends you away and shames you and says, I'm doing it for you. I don't love it. There was a hand over here. Yeah, please.
I was just going to say, I'm kind of fucked if I can't love myself in my imperfection, in my humanity, and why would it be any different for the other levels of that?
And for sure, it works like that. The more we accept ourselves in our own imperfection, you have to live with your own mind, so you know how imperfect it is. You see all of your shadow and unskillfulness and those moments of forgetfulness, and you know that you're not perfect. So why do you expect everyone else to be? And why do you take it so personally when they're not? And the more there is that mirror, the more we hold ourselves to perfection ideals and judge ourselves for our imperfection, the more we put that onto others. So this loving kindness from the inside out. So let me share again, and I'll do this every week. You'll get sick of it. The Buddha's words on loving kindness. He says, this is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease, and let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or laying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. So we'll meditate and find a way to sit upright, relaxed. As you're ready, allowing your eyes to be closed. Release any unnecessary tension you can release in your face, your jaw, shoulders. Breathing in, feel the sensations the breath creates. Breathing out, soften your belly. Relax into the present. And establishing an attitude of loving kindness, of unconditional friendliness. Bring to mind the benefactors, the teachers, the ancestors, the friends, who have supported you in your own healing, awakening, recovering. Seeing them through the eyes of loving kindness, with the attitude of unconditional friendliness, perhaps completely aware of some of their imperfections, some of the ways that their suffering affected you or others. Sending them wishes for ease, for happiness, for freedom from suffering. The three phrases that I learned and I continue to use. May you be happy. May you be at ease or at peace. And may you be free from suffering. So just pick one person at a time, visualize them without getting into the story. Just bring them to mind and send loving kindness to these teachers, to these friends, to your parents. Now, if your parents are really, really difficult, you can wait and put them in the difficult category that's coming in the next weeks. If you can touch some appreciation, some gratitude, include each parent if you can. Feeling of friendliness. And use whatever phrases make sense to you. It's okay if there's a bit of gratitude, some thank you, some appreciation in there. This positive attitude of wishing for their happiness and well-being and freedom, even if they're no longer living, in whatever state you may be. Send you loving kindness and wish for your ease. And it's totally cool to include your pets. And to include the archetype of loving teacher, spiritual guide. After spending a couple of minutes, move on to the next one. If it feels right, invite them into your heart. Know that you have appreciated the love, the teachings, the support. Who else has supported you, encouraged you, inspired you? Sending loving kindness. May you be happy. May you be at ease. May you be free from suffering. Now let's do something together as a group that we don't usually do, which is as you continue to develop loving kindness, saying the phrases, thinking of your friends and teachers and parents, let's begin to say their names out loud into the room as we all send loving kindness. Patricia and Stephen, Jack and Mary, and John Amaro and Sumedo, Gary, Howie, Eugene, Thich Nhat Hanh, Dalai Lama, Joseph and Sharon, Stephen and Martine, Joan and Soltram, Steve and Drew, Jason and Baron, Vinny and Micah, Joe and Dave, Tara and James, Rebecca and Aaron, Stevie Ray and Hazel, Andrea, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, radiating loving kindness to all of the people who have been kind to you, Sending appreciation, friendliness, kindness to the traditions, the communities, the religions, the philosophies that have helped you see more clearly and respond more wisely to your own life. And spending the last few minutes coming back to loving kindness for yourself, bringing it in. And maybe it's forgiveness that is the prerequisite to self-love, to kindness. So send yourself some forgiveness for your own imperfections, neurotic tendencies, bad habits. Send some forgiveness to the judging mind,